So this show is basically the story of how I went from being a very unsatisfied, unhappy person to a slightly less unhappy person through great difficulty. When I was a child, I remember feeling like everyone I ever loved rejected me at some point. Like my parents, my dad, my friends, Ewan McGregor. Everyone spurned my undying love and adoration. I used to wonder whether I was depressed because of nurture or nature, because both of my parents have it clinically, but they also kind of raised me to be that way. Like my dad didn't get me a stuffed Winnie the Pooh, he got me a stuffed Eeyore. That suicidal ass donkey, the emo haircut, and the tail pinned on so it could take it off and hang itself at any second. And it was a talking stuffed animal, so when I squeezed it, it would say, "Nobody likes me." I was like, yeah, nobody likes me either, Eeyore. And when I was a child, I felt very much rejected by everyone I loved, my parents, my friends, Ewan McGregor, literally everyone I felt deeply for. And I also just felt abandoned by my mom at times. Like she would lose me everywhere. Supermarkets, museums, wide open fields, everywhere. I remember being at the mall many a time and having to go to security and be like, "Hey, I lost my mom." And they'd be like, what would she look like? And she's got red hair and she looks like she's just been relieved of a terrible burden. Oh, she's right over there, right? That was good for the old self-esteem. So I felt like I didn't fit in because my friend's parents told me that I was a bad influence and she forbade him from playing with me. Now, that broke my heart. Just because I snuck in a chicken parmesan wedge to Senegal. I know, technically it's not kosher, but the rule does not make sense. The rule is you cannot cook a calf in its mother's milk. Do chickens have tits? No. I said, "Fine, it's delicious, try it. Just don't tell your mom." He tried it, he loved it, and he told his fucking mom, "Hi! What the fuck, man?" I thought we were friends. We each had a little bit of each's circumcision skin around our necklaces. You know? Chaim actually had the gall to message me on Facebook 20 years later. And was just like, "Hey Andrew, what are you up to?" And I was like, "I'm a podcast producer. It's going great." And then he just left me on red. His mom must have been checking his messages. And I remember deciding I was going to pick a new culture. I was watching cartoons. Anybody here see Dragon Ball Z? No? Yes, okay, so about 5 of you are gonna like this joke. Well, basically they have a guy who just like levels up, and when he levels up, he goes from black hair to blonde hair, right? And I remember seeing that, I'm like, oh, if I get angry enough, I can turn German. This is amazing. I want this to be my people. This is my culture. And then I found out that was Japanese. I went looking for a martial arts gym, and in my town we didn't have any Japanese martial arts. We just had a Brazilian place, and they do capoeira, right, which is dance fighting, right? You make your opponent want to fuck you instead of fight you. And I was about 8 years old, so I remember practicing on the way home from school, and then I just saw like a creepy guy hiding behind a tree following me. I was like, God damn it, I'm like the Pied Piper of perverts over here. This martial art is creating the problem it was meant to solve. So eventually I did find a karate gym. I was doing it, I was competing, I was doing well, I won a tournament. And in my mind, when I won that trophy, I was like, okay, this is gonna be revenge on my friend's mom. I'm going to be the most embarrassing famous Jew ever. Right, I just pictured it. They're announcing me at the Madison Square Garden, coming out to the ring, the circumciser! All All my fans are like, snip him, snip him. Coming out to Wagner, anti-Semitic classical music. I got a tattoo of Israel on my arm with the 1967 expanded border. On the other side, I got a Jewish star. On the top, it says space lasers. On the bottom, it says we control the weather. It never happened, though. I quit karate. I was getting hit in the head, and I got these terrible migraines. The only way they would go away was by watching the Gilmore Girls on mute with my eyes closed. I don't know why. Just thinking about Lorelai and Rory having intellectual conversations made me feel relaxed. I also think I got migraines because they put me on Ritalin when I was age 6 until I was 16. They put me on children's meth. Crack for tykes. And that is not good. Yeah. Did they put you on it too?
You know, but it is legal for 6. You're all right.
It's illegal before 6?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I guess my parents were following UK guidelines. Interesting. And if you take it before you're 6, you turn into a gremlin.
Yeah, pretty much. I've seen a few of them.
I think I turned into one anyway. So, but I remember being in high school and just also being tortured by the idea of finding a purpose in life. Like, what am I studying to be? Like, I'm going through these classes. None of them seem really applicable to what I can imagine myself doing professionally. And I was trying to like decide, like, oh, am I going to be an astrophysicist? No, I'm terrible at math. Am I going to be a podiatrist? No, I have a foot fetish. And eventually I decided I wanted the profession with the least amount of responsibility. I decided I was going to be a poet. Because not only is it art, you can't really like physically injure somebody with art, but also no one reads poetry anymore. So I felt like the safest absolute choice. And I don't really write it so much anymore, but I could still sling some stanzas, I could still promenade some prosody in the gazebo with a warm wind tickling my taint softly in December. I could still make nice words come out my beak. I was in college. I was trying to be a poetry major, and it was going okay until I found weed. And I was smoking weed every day and listening to the Velvet Underground, and then weed turned into LSD, and LSD turned into growing my own mushrooms. If you've done mushrooms, you know they work exponentially. Like, you take 1/8, you talk to God, right? You take 2/8, you realize you're God. You take 3/8, you realize everything is God. And you take 4/8, you realize you don't understand fractions. Yeah. The bigger the dose, the more useful the insight you get. That's why I chugged 5 pints of ayahuasca to find out I need to start trimming my nose hairs. I did 128 micrograms of DMT to realize I was using the peach emoji incorrectly. My aunt was like, "How are you doing, Andrew?" I was like, "I'm doing great, peach, 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 how are you?" She thought I was asking about her vagina. She just left me on red. Sorry, Aunt Martha. I need a drink. That peach is dry. But taking big doses does have drawbacks. I remember one time I took a full ounce of mushrooms. I was growing them, so I had them on hand. And I was just hearing shit for a week, just... everything sounded like a Furby. I don't do mushrooms very often anymore. I had one bad trip. I took half an ounce. And I take responsibility for taking too big a dose but I don't take responsibility for going back in time and impregnating Hitler's mom. Because I didn't do that. But at the end of that trip, I was pretty convinced I did. Anybody here do DMT? You did. Did they offer you a gift?
They did. What, the elves?
Yeah.
No, they didn't.
Because I recently heard, like, I know that there's a whole trope about the self-transforming machine elves by Terrence McKenna, and that was with mushrooms too. But what I didn't realize is that there's a common experience of the elves offering you a gift, like an object, a multi-dimensional object, and that's what happened to me. So basically, the elves put on their own version of how to meditate a burlesque show. And I'm just channeling it for you with more pubic hair. So where was I? College. Yeah, I failed out. And I moved home to my mom's living room, the uterus part 2. And I remember my dad had a talking with me. He's a public school teacher. And he said, Andrew, you should be a teacher too. Go back to school, get your degree, you'll have benefits, because in the US we don't have health care. You know, he said, you'll be taken care of. You'll have a retirement plan, everything. And I'll be like, Dad, I want to like do something. I want to be great at something. Those who can't do, teach. That's what they say, right? And he said, well, those who can't teach live homeless in a box with a needle sticking out of the tip of their penis. I was like, Dad, I don't think that's how heroin works. And he said, well, a lot has changed since the 60s. So I got a job. I didn't go back to school yet. And I was basically shopping for the very wealthy. I was getting their dry cleaning, I was picking up their prescriptions, and I was going to the fanciest supermarket we have in the United States, Whole Foods. Jeff Bezos owns it. They have snow crab. It's an okay place, you know, especially since they don't really pay attention to shoplifters very well. I looked it up when I started stealing from Whole Foods. They have a rule, basically, if they catch you, they just make you sign a document that you're not allowed on the premises anymore. It's trespassing. That's it. They don't arrest you. They don't sue you. They don't do anything. So while I was shopping for these people, one day I added to the bottom of my cart just a sushi lunch. And then the next time, this is not a prop, I'm just thirsty, I stole this Red Bull. This is 8 years old. Pardon me. He's like, what accent was that? What did I do? York? What is that? Bristol? Brightal? Breath mint? I've been working on my Scottish accent for like 5 or 6 years. Can you guys? I should save it to the end because you're gonna hate me immediately. Wait till you like me; it'll make you hate me. But anyway, so yeah, I was stealing first the sushi lunch. Next time, I got a little crazier. I got a whole tray of smoked salmon. I was stealing Belgian beer. I just got crazy with it. And about 6 months after I started stealing, I was stealing about 200 pounds worth of food a week from 5 different locations of Whole Foods. And I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, the best thing about it was cooking lavish dinners for my poor friends. You know, they'd come over to my place and be like, here's some duck à l'orange, here's some skates, some trout almondine, some foie gras terrine. I accidentally did this bad Scottish accent right there. You catch that? And they're like, Andrew, why do you have no door on your bedroom? I'm like, just don't worry about that. I'm making you truffles and pork dicks. You know, just eat your food. And then one day I go to the Whole Foods as per my usual. picking up a few things. I get in there, and by this time I'm so casual. Like, I've been doing this for a year and a half. I'm just like, yeah, man, grab a kombucha, chug it in the aisle. I'm throwing things into my cart. There's some Madagascar vanilla beans. There's some sardines from Portugal. Say hi to Joe in the deli. Hey, how's the prosciutto today? Is it slicing weird? Yeah, it's humid out. Yeah, Joe. And I get there, I pay for my food, I get out to the lot, unpack the bags, put them in the car, and then I see the manager. And he pushes a shopping cart behind my car, blocking it in, and stands behind the cart and says, take everything out of the car and I won't call the police. Except for he was a nerd, so he sounded, take everything out of the car and I won't call the police. And I was like, nah, I gotta go. And I got in the car. And if you ever want to commit theft, do not do it in a compact vehicle. Because I realized very quickly that I was not gonna make it over the curb in front of me. And then I looked in my rearview mirror and he's standing there and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not turning shoplifting into attempted murder. So I got out of the car and I'm like, okay. So he walks me in. And he rings up everything to know how much to report. And then as they're finally ringing me up, a police officer walks in. And I was like, hey man, you said you were not gonna call the police. And he said, well, I changed my mind when you thought about running me over. And I got morally indignant in the supermarket. I said, I may be a thief, but you, sir, are a fucking liar! And I told everyone, steal shit! Steal shit! No one stole anything. People do not take advice from people getting handcuffed. I don't know. Get a prenuptial agreement! And that was a humbling moment. When I got out of the police station, I decided to change my life for the better. And I should have gone to therapy, but I wound up looking for a guru, looking for an enlightened being to tell me how to iron my pants. Did I do a good job? They're okay. They're not great. I earned them in my Airbnb today. But anyway, I eventually started listening to this podcast by this Irish-American anarchist Buddhist monk named Kobutsu Malone, which is Japanese for fully enlightened, interminably ancient being, Malone. And he was actually a really cool guy. Like, he taught Zen meditation to death row inmates in Arkansas, which I thought was pretty dope. And I emailed him, and he's like, come visit me in southern Japan. That's where my son is studying, and I'm visiting him. So I go there, I meet him in a bar, and we're having a beer, and I'm like, so, you're my teacher now, right? And he said, I'm sorry, Andrew, I cannot teach you. And I said, why not? And he said, because I'm psychic, and I know you stole from Whole Foods. Just kidding. And I was like, okay, well, why can't you teach me? He said, because I don't have my own place. I don't have my own temple. You should study with my son's teacher, Shoto Harada. And I'm like, is he enlightened? Is he a great teacher? And he said, he has never been accused of sexual misconduct. I'm like, really? That's I guess that's impressive. He has not even accidentally spotlighted a camel toe with the shine of his bald head. Okay. All right, I'm in, I guess. I'm here. So I started living at the monastery. And it's kind of crazy how quickly luxuries turn into necessities. Like, until last week, I'd never used a bidet. But now I can't brush my teeth without one. You know? Like, even if I put the brush under the faucet for a minute, it still feels bone dry unless my asshole is sopping wet. I don't know why. But the opposite is also true. You get equally used to the worst, most Spartan conditions. Like, we were basically waking up at 3:30 in the morning, meditating for 10 hours a day. We were doing crazy landscaping work. We chant all the time. Everyone was, and it was this horrible monotone chant, like, oh, da, da, da. And I would just like substitute Britney Spears lyrics. Oops, I did it again. And no one noticed. It was fun. But it was also a sexually repressive place. And I was 21 years old. I was at the precipice of my sexual anonymity. Whatever. And they told us not to masturbate, that it was a waste of spiritual energy. You know what else is a waste of spiritual energy? Trying to get 21-year-olds not to wank. I made it 5 weeks, which is pretty impressive. You know, I had to go up a size in underwear, but it was fine. I finally broke when I was meditating next to this maple tree. It was a beautiful day. It was a slight breeze, and I felt something grazing my crotch, and it was the branch of the tree. And I opened my eyes and I looked at this tree, right in her knot. And I was just like, you down, baby? And it's considered rude to like ask people sometimes, like, how old are you? Like, that's an awkward question. But trees you don't have to ask. You just chop them down and read the rings, you know? But I didn't do that. That felt ruder than just humping the tree. We just did some like over the bark shit. Nothing crazy. And finally, after 5 weeks at the monastery, I was officially accepted as a student of Shodo Harada. And what that meant is now I could get a one-on-one interview. And I was like, okay, finally, I'm gonna get somebody to appraise me and assess me and tell me what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And I get in this room, there's incense going, we're shrouded in darkness, lots of bowing going on, lots of pretense. I finally get there and I say, hey, I know you're just supposed to like observe me meditating or whatever, but I want to know like what is the meaning, like what am I here for? And he said, you don't exist. And I was like, well, if I did, then what would I be doing? Ideally. And he said, I don't know how to ring a bell. He basically just excused me with a fucking bell. Basically told me to fuck off, you dumb cunt. So I left the monastery pretty shortly after. I went back home, and meditation is not a substitute for therapy. I mean, if anything, it's a substitute for time out, for punishment. You know, like if I'm a dad, maybe I'll be like, hey, Billy, stop pushing your brother. If you don't stop pushing him, I'm gonna pull over and convert to Buddhism right now. But I wish I was taught how to meditate differently as a young man. And I'd like to lead a guided meditation now, so you guys don't feel ripped off. No, really, I do want to convey some things that I felt were severely lacking at the Zen temple. Most specifically, that you're not supposed to push your feelings away or your thoughts away. Like, there was a lot of importance placed on the idea of just complete and utter focus on your tum-tum, on your belly. And that was the dantian, I guess they call it, the navel chakra. That was the whole meditation there. But but as a 21-year-old, like hearing that, I didn't think I was suppressing my thoughts, but I definitely was, and it was definitely doing more harm than it was good. I finally made eye contact with you. Finally, I kept getting this far to the room. So anyway, I want to do like a very gentle, present-based meditation. So a lot of meditation, the object of focus is either a mantra, a visualization. Your breath is a very common one. The guy who does Headspace, that's a common one. His voice. But I just want the present moment to be the object of focus. So whatever that entails, just the feeling of sitting here, the smell of stale beer, the need to pee slightly, the desire for an intermission so you could get another drink. We don't do those in America, by the way. There's no intermissions in American comedy. Okay, well, I might as well do the Scottish accent. That made you hate me. So anyway, let's all get some good posture going. I'm just going to stand here weirdly, but you guys can sit down like normal meditators. Actually, let me sit down. I'll sit down on the ground. This is a historic, well, now I feel like I'm looking up your skirt. Okay, so I'm going to stand here weirdly. So everyone, get some good posture going. Don't stress your back out, but just kind of feel like it's as straight as it can be without over-engaging your muscles. So basically your spine should feel like a string of pearls hanging down from your head. And just take a deep, relaxing breath. Take another. They're free. And just kind of feel the stresses of the day kind of go away. Just realize where you're holding that stress and just kind of consciously relax those parts of your body. And just notice if you have any thoughts. Try to see where within your physical form they are. And what does a thought feel like to you? Instead of being caught up in the content of the thought, try to focus on the sensation of the thought in a non-judgmental way. And as you relax your consciousness, your awareness around the vicinity of the thought, eventually you might notice the thought kind of loses power and kind of dissipates of its own accord. And maybe another thought pops up. Just do the same thing. Try to locate it and just watch it. And scan and see how you're feeling, what emotions you notice. And in the same way that you didn't get involved with the content of your thought, try to just notice the sensations and the location of the emotion, rather than what the emotion means and why you're having it. Then eventually the emotion might change, it might shift places. Just keep looking at it objectively, non-judgmentally, compassionately. And then bring your awareness to just this moment. Not inwardly, not externally, but where the internal meets the external. Where time is just reaching you. And if you find yourself distracted by thoughts or feelings, just do that same watching exercise. Notice the sensation, notice the location, relax around it. And then once you do that, go back to the present moment. We're going to do that for another minute. And the silence does not mean I'm bombing. I'm still doing quite well up here. And slowly, let's open our eyes. And yeah, I didn't look up anyone's skirt while we were doing this. So I'd say that was a success. How did you guys feel? Is that okay? Did anybody feel like they had an experience they want to share?
I kind of understood, you know how the guys say you don't exist. I kind of understood that. You're like,
Right.
just when you stop making it, it's like you're not really there.
Yeah, it's like another thing that really scared the shit out of me at the monastery is that the you don't exist thing. Like I thought if I'm enlightened, then I literally will never have a thought again. Like I will not have a sense of self. But after 15 years, I realized no, that doesn't go away. It's just you just kind of like transcend it sometimes, and then when you want to think, you think. Not that I am that good that I can do that, but that's the idea. Cool, man. You don't exist, bro. Does no one want another beer?
That's how I got here. Really.
Oh, nice. Oh, yeah. Promo code, I don't exist. Cool. Well, now let's move on to the romantic, sexual part of this show. Cool. Do I have your consent to say anything? Yeah, I just remember being lonely, very horny, slightly smelly.
I lost my virginity at 22 years old, which is pretty late for a cool, sexy fucking Jew. And I used to wonder why it took me so long. I thought maybe it's because my dad didn't really teach me how to flirt properly. He told me you can tell someone likes you if they let you touch their hair. Yeah. My dad taught me how to put moves on pets. Also, I think part of the problem was I didn't realize I was bisexual until just this moment. You, sir. What are you doing out there? Busy on this dick!
You're very handsome. And yeah, I lost it pretty late. And I remember the first time I fell in love though. And I was in college. I went back to school after I left the monastery. And I went on a date and we hit it off okay, but I think I was just too scared to be vulnerable. So I came up with like weird reasons why we shouldn't date in my head. And I was like, let's just be friends. And we were friends. And then I started falling in love with her. And I realized I was starting to fall deeply in love with her when like the characteristic that initially kind of like turned me off a little bit started to become attractive. Like she had these kind of like weird messed up teeth, and then one day I was just like, no, they're actually adorable. It looks like they're trying to cross their legs. Like they need to pee and they're holding it in. And eventually the feeling of love like got so intense that I was like, I just need to tell her. I can't keep this inside anymore. And I told her, and she said, why are you telling me this? Why couldn't you just bottle this up? And I said, I just think you're like the most amazing person ever. And she's like, no, I'm not. I'm an alcoholic. I fist fight my dad. I have a tattoo of Heineken on my face from when I fell asleep on a can in the woods. And I was like, yeah, but I feel more like myself around you than I do any other time. And she said, that's because I'm the only person you know who has lower self-esteem than you do. And I was like, oh shit, you're right. But I was like, you shouldn't have low self-esteem. You're amazing, you're funny, you're smart, you have great teeth. And she's like, no I don't. And then we kind of parted ways after that. And I decided to finally just get it over with. Like, just have sex with somebody. It doesn't matter who, just get it over with. And I decided to go see a sex worker. And it made sense to me at the time because, like, you wouldn't learn how to drive from your little sister. Right? You'd learn from your dad. Because he has a big fat cock. You know, and he knows how to parallel park without any lube in your ass on a hill when it's icy out. You have hemorrhoids. So, yeah, I found a prostitute on a classified ad on Craigslist. Do you guys have Craigslist? Wow, don't break up over this. Whatever, it's classified online ads. And I went to see her, and it was okay experience. I lasted about 1 minute and 32 seconds. And then I was like, let's go again. I paid for an hour, and she was like, well, that's not how this works. I was like, well, why don't you just write per orgasm then? Then I would understand. So the next time I went to a sex worker, my second time having sex, I decided I am going to make full use of the entire hour. So I decided I'm going to have tantric sex. And I was like, she was into it. So we did this, you know, like I got crisscross applesauce and she sat on my lap and we looked deeply into each other's eyes and we kind of like tried to cycle the energy through each other's chakras and like we were getting so deep into it that I felt like I could see into her past lives. Like the life before, I was like, oh my God, in your last life, you were also a sex worker. But in the life before that, you were a governor who outlawed prostitution. You deserve this. Oh, okay, that makes sense. But anyway, I made it 57 minutes and 12 seconds. It's pretty good. And I came very quietly, because I was raised, you know, in my dad's living room. And I had to learn how to orgasm gracefully, like a ballerina, like, oh, how's this coming? Well, she must have been raised in a football stadium because she was just like, goal! And the pimp came in and he was pissed off. He was like, why'd you take so long? And I'm like, I took the hour. And he's like, there is an implied time limit. I'm like, how is it implied? What are you talking? And he's like, because most people who go to sex workers are not generous lovers. I was like, fuck you, man. And I did not catch herpes that time. The next time I did. And honestly, herpes is not that bad. I feel like in Europe, herpes is less stigmatized than in America. In our country, having herpes is kind of like owning a gun here. You know, no one wants to admit to it. And
Honestly, the worst thing about having herpes is like my only pickup line is now, do you have herpes too? That's the worst thing about it. But it did hurt my self-confidence when I found out I had HSV2, that's the herpes simplex virus 2. And for a while I was bummed out, but I decided to just like work on myself. You know, I got on some herpes dating websites. And they're good, man. They're real good. Yeah, and I went to school for music. I wound up, like, I fell in love with the blues because I was kind of depressed. And if it's cool with you, I'll play you guys a little song that I wrote around that time in my life. Cool. It's called My Penis Don't Have Blisters Anymore, but my heart still do. Yeah. But I want you to rub my heart. This thing on my heart, it's shaped like a nasty little piece of doo-doo. And if you can ignore it, I will bring you sexual pleasure. I play harmonica better than I write lyrics. So just ignore them and suck on my dick. But yeah, I met my wife at the beginning of the pandemic, and which was a dangerous time to deep throat cocks because you might cough and it's dangerous, you know. But we get on. She's my soulmate. She's my real guru, and I'm very grateful that I found her. I met her on a herpes dating website. Yeah, and I also stopped stealing from Whole Foods. I just order online from Amazon and return the 3 most expensive items. They let me do that, so that's cool. And I'm no longer depressed. I've evolved past it, yes. At least that's what my therapist tells me on our podcast that I record without his permission. This show usually ends with a burlesque dance from my wife, but since she's not here, I'm gonna do it. DJ, play that music. Oh yeah.
Wait, stop. What are you doing? I'm gonna do the dance.
Why would you do the dance?
I'm sexy with you. Did you want a sexy dance?
You want Twinkie Superman?
Yeah, that's what they want.
No, they want me. I got more feminine energy. I'm bisexual.
I have bigger boobs. It works out.
I don't know, man. All right, how about this? What do you guys think about like we do a dance off?
Yes.
Yeah, to like decide in future shows who's gonna do burlesque. All right.
Don't get mad when I win.
All right, can you guys give us some like real good
Yeah.
sexual
DJ, hit the music.
Steiner. We did not rehearse that enough. We always like, and then this is where we do that thing. That is extremely dangerous and takes lots of skill to do.
After years of practice, we thought we could have nailed it tonight.
Yeah, good thing you had some pubes to grab onto there. Well, this has been the show.
Yeah.
You guys have been amazing. I don't know. Good job, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great night.